Nation, happy Tuesday. Tuesday is my YouTube day, so I'm spending the day working on videos for my YouTube channel. I spend the morning doing kind of research and planning, and in the afternoon actually recording. But I'm taking a quick break to do this IG Live with you, and I'm excited to have a special guest who's going to pop in with me soon. Zanda Man, welcome aboard. Nick Tabor in the house, welcome. Terry, welcome Terry. Let me see where he is. We're going to introduce you to a new entrepreneur. I'm excited to learn about his story and share it with you guys as well. There, I see him in the chat here. Let's bring him and have a fun conversation talking entrepreneurship. Here he comes. It's going to be good. Hashtag Believe Nation. I love it, Michael. Welcome aboard, man. And there he is.
Top of the morning. How you doing, Evan?
Good. How are you, Mark?
I'm doing great. Although, to be honest with you, I love the title New Entrepreneur. I wish at my age I could claim that title, but I am long in the saddle in this business. Just a new venture. That part is correct.
Yeah, I love that. So for my audience, before getting into the new thing you're working on, just give us a quick overview of your background, because you've been doing this for a while, serial entrepreneur. Tell us your story.
Sure, I'd love to. And by the way, thanks again for having me. I'm really pumped about being here with you today. So just a little bit of background. I went into publishing right out of college. I worked for the Wall Street Journal, found my way out into Silicon Valley and just fell in love with technology, moved back to Texas and started my first startup, and have been in tech ever since. I sold a media company to Ziff Davis back in the late 90s during kind of .com one. I was on TV as the computer guy. I was actually host of the show, and I had 3 or 4 television programs that were broadcast. I was a regular on CNBC, built a media company, sold that in the late 90s, and since then have been a serial entrepreneur around technology and media, but also I've been a gun for hire. I was the chief marketing officer at McAfee. I led strategy and development at Apollo Education, and most recently I was the chief CMO at Rackspace. Before jumping off the wheel to go back into the dirty business of entrepreneurship again.
So you've got a new company called Grata, and
Yes.
and it seems to be like a mix between Uber and LinkedIn, but for service workers and people kind of on the front line. So tell us about the new project you're working on.
Yeah, so just a quick story. I'm a little bit of a storyteller. I think the context will drive home where this mashup between an Uber rating system, a LinkedIn for the long end of the tail of human capital, those working class folks, creates a better mousetrap version of an Indeed or employment opportunity. So I went into a Home Depot one day and I had one of those experiences that we've all had where I had somebody that just was so incredible with their service. This guy took like an hour and 15 minutes to walk me up and down the aisles to find everything I needed, that when I checked out, I was so appreciative. I made a beeline for that elevated manager's stand because I want to let them know that this guy, Frank, was so awesome that I'd never go to a Lowe's for the rest of my life, and I'm a Home Depot man. And the guy at the counter says, oh, yeah, Frank's great. I'm not the manager. I'll pass it along. Have a nice day. Just completely blew me off. And as I'm walking to the car, I'm thinking, first of all, Frank, who really kicked butt for me, is not going to get anything for my effort to try to acknowledge and recognize this human being. But then as a CMO, I thought, what an unbelievable missed opportunity to create deeper customer engagement and affinity. You got a customer who's coming to the counter to tell you how awesome your store employee is, and you didn't do anything to capture that experience. And then as a user, when I got in my car, then it was almost pissed off because I thought, I have no connection with Frank. I'm not going to go back in there and ask for his phone number or his email so that I can take advantage of his great service again and again and again. And so that's when we dug in and realized, while we have a mature ecosystem, you and I do, in a LinkedIn white collar world, in the service sector, there's no connectivity between employers, customers, and the people on the front lines who are doing all this hard work. And, you know, shame on us, it took COVID for us to appreciate frontline people. But first and foremost, it's about recognizing the great deeds of these 80 million people who are busting their hump every day and do great work.
So yesterday on YouTube, there was a trending video of a YouTuber goes into like a McDonald's, and somebody's filming him, and he wants to go. It looks like he's angry, but he goes to the front. And it's like, hey, who made this burger? Like, who made this burger? And eventually they try to find like the guy who made the burger. It was this guy. He's like, Fred, you made a killer burger, man. I love you. And then everybody starts like clapping and freaking out. This is yesterday trending on YouTube. And it just highlights kind of the need for recognizing somebody who works at McDonald's just like, who made my burger? I want to say thank you for making an amazing burger.
Yeah. By the way, you just nailed it. And so the sequence, just to know how you capture that, right? Because most of us aren't going to get out of the car, and most of us aren't going to scream, who made my friggin' burger? We're just not going to do that. So how about a seamless, frictionless way to do that? So very simple. We've all been trained to this process when we exit an Uber of give somebody a 5-star rating, say something nice about that individual, and an optional tip. 5-star rating, say something nice, optional tip. Why is that limited to a couple hundred thousand Uber drivers? We have 80 million service sector people changing our tires, bringing us the barista who's making our drink, all the way down to the guy that's making our burger. And so that was the whole process. Why don't we incorporate that same protocol on the front end as a way to collect feedback on these great human beings that do a great job? And that, again, allows them to get a digital record of all their great deeds, because Frank at Home Depot has no way to memorialize all these wonderful things that he does. Now there's a permanent record, in essence, and indeed for Frank and those service sector folks who don't get to take advantage of the documentation. So again, recognize, record, and then the last is reward. Currently, we have a billboard with your Venmo or PayPal coordinates. We'll have full integrated ACH to ACH in about 60 days, so you never have to leave the app. So you can tell that person, dude, you did a great job. Thank you. You're awesome. Here's a buck or two if you want to do that. But again, to create a frictionless way for us to reward and recognize.
That's cool. So you need to have the companies to obviously opt in on this and roll it out?
No, quite the contrary. So business model is real simple, just like LinkedIn. That guy working at McDonald's could go in and fill out a profile. They're automatically populated in our database. And the next time somebody comes in and wants to give him or her a rating in Grata, they're already in there. Other employees can come along. No one has to have permission from the employer, and it doesn't cost a thing. Where we get companies to sign up, we have a B2B SaaS component of this, where when large lot retailers, let's just stay with Home Depot. If Home Depot were to want to get the performance data and all the analytics that come from that customer feedback, plus all the customer engagement opportunities that come from hooking up employees with customers, they can pay a small fee of 99 cents per month per employee for the data. But the service itself is absolutely free.
So if I'm Fred or I'm Evan working at Home Depot, my business tanks and I got to go get a job at Home Depot. Do I wear a badge, or like how do you find me?
Yeah. So right now, if you were the first person at Home Depot, you'd have to do it'd be a viral experience. You'd have to say, by the way, if I did a good job for you to let me know how I did on Grata. And somebody could go in and download. And by the way, you authenticate with Facebook or Google coordinates, you're up and running in seconds. That's number one. But as companies start to embrace this, we've had some large box retailers who are not only excited about doing an inscription but they basically say to all their employees, please download this app. We're going to promote it at checkout. But even on the point of sale system, the idea that you could see that ubiquitous Grata icon, press a button, immediately spin through an infinite loop, like a dating app almost, of faces and names, find the person who waited on you and give them a 5-star and some commentary. You're going to see it integrated on point of sale too. So we're in the infancy. We're just starting to roll out, but we hope that one day, again, it is as commonplace to see that icon as a good housekeeping seal or a checkout cart icon.
Well, isn't that as easy as having the person just wear a badge with a code that can be scanned in?
Sure. We could very easily deploy via a QR code for every individual employee and take you right to their profile. Again, that will take some integration and participation from the retailer or the business.
Yeah.
But just to sign up today, you could go tomorrow, Evan, if you wind up at Home Depot or at McDonald's, and you could start harvesting great feedback from customers that love what you do.
Well, you're getting lots of love in the chat. People are saying, dude, this man is a visionary, freaking brilliant.
Oh, all right, let me write this down for my wife. Do a quick screen capture for me because I want to show her later. That's great. Hey, one last point on this because I don't want to miss. We're talking a lot about the benefit for these employees. Don't underestimate the value for users. The fact that we can all have almost a personal Angie's list of go-to folks that always treat us right, that always do a good job for us. Where did my hairdresser or barber move to? That HVAC guy that used to work for us at the plumbing company, where is he now? Because he was awesome. The ability to stay connected with people that take care of us gives an end user a lot of motivation above and beyond just rewarding people. But last point, last story, and I'll make it very brief. This whole idea in your McDonald's was so perfect. I got to go find that YouTube video. I went into Starbucks one day and I got back in my car and the thought crossed my mind that that woman that works at the front counter takes such great care of me. I got out of my car, got back in line, waited my turn. I got back to the counter. She said, "Oh, Mark, I'm sorry. Was there something wrong with your coffee?" I said, "Nope. You know what? I just realized I never stopped to tell you how much I appreciate you. You're always in a great mood. My coffee's always spectacular. I put $3 in the tip jar for my $4 latte, whatever. I said, I just want you to know I appreciate you." Well, she started crying. Now, of course, I feel terrible. All the people in line are probably going, "Who's the old guy that made the young girl at the counter start crying, for goodness sakes," right? No good deed goes unpunished. And she said, "I just want you to know how much I appreciate that. That's why we do this. We love working with people. We love being a part of your day, and I appreciate you taking that minute." Can I tell you something? That day at lunch, I grossly overtipped on our lunch meal. The rest of the day, I was on cloud nine. It's infectious to take a second to just acknowledge another human being and do something nice. And God knows, in the environment we've been in for the last handful of years, we could use a little more kindness and a little more recognition and praise. So I think the gratitude component of this, there's something in there that I hope that people will respond to.
What's the feedback been from companies on the tipping idea?
Yeah, a little hot and cold. So as you can imagine, there's some environments like, do I really want my employees in a big box retailer competing for tips? So there's optionality then if we're doing an enterprise SaaS deployment for a large retailer. They're not always as comfortable with that. So I think that's a very good point. In smaller retail environments, an alternative, say in a restaurant, to traditional cash tipping, it's just one more avenue by which they can connect those payments to their employees. The other side that they're super pumped about is the idea that for affinity programs and loyalty and rewards, if I care so much that I take the time to vote on your employees, and let's be honest, this is kind of a digital version of a customer comment card with a lot of cool stuff on the back end, but nobody ever figured out how to do this. And there is no data harvesting on last mile customer facing employees, full stop. You can do it for mid-management, senior, board of directors, nothing on the front line. So the data is what's so important to companies because especially post-COVID, one thing that we've all acknowledged, we don't know what retail and service looks like after we go through this crisis, but we know one thing, whether it's low touch or no touch, there'll be less human to human interaction. And we have just got to get it right the first time, lest we lose and get disintermediated from our customers. So people matter.
And is the data public? Like I can go in and see the ratings on different people who work at this Starbucks I'm about to go to?
Guys, even better than that, you walk into Starbucks and the app's going to immediately show you every employee stack rank. Whoever's got the highest score comes in first. So especially in like restaurants, oh, I want to sit in his section or her section. So yeah, we gamify it in that those people get that recognition to know that they're really good at their job. And by the way, they should be recognized. So all the behind the scenes data is not public, depending on the preference of the user. So I can hide my comments if I want, but just think about this and use your example of Starbucks. If I have 50 customers that gave me a Grata and said I did a wonderful job, two things change the entire dynamic of my work life. One, I've documented all my good deeds and my successes as part of my resume. So the next time I go to interview for a job, I don't just show my resume, but I say, hold on, addendum, let me show you page 2. Here's 50 customers and the great things that they say about my service.
Yeah.
Boom, completely different scenario. But number 2, that barista has their book of business or their customer contacts as part of their record as well. That's another change. So now they can say, I also have 50 loyal customers that I'm going to ping and tell them, by the way, I'm now working down the street at Dunkin' Donuts. So you talk about empowering folks who are on the front line. You deserve your good deeds to be memorialized. You deserve co-ownership in that book of business that you helped build. And if you document and record those two things, your value in the workplace goes up. Full stop.
I love it. I'm trying to think who's the forward-facing business owners who will take you up on this, because there's a lot of people who live in fear who, when you say stuff like that, they're like, oh my God, I'm going to lose all my employees. I don't want to be headhunted. And, you know, I mean, they might be dealing with that already on like you said, LinkedIn and everything else. But I don't know that Starbucks wants to roll that out and like lose their baristas to some new company. Like so many people will live off fear-based decisions with the power of this technology. Who are the visionary businesses you're partnering with to kind of bring this to life?
Well, I don't think it's quite as draconian as you would present, because I think the lion's share of companies really, certainly the progressive ones, recognize that talent has got to be recognized or it will naturally gravitate out anyway. And those companies that really care about their employees are investing in their future and investing in their recognition. One interesting data point, and there's a lot of HR studies along these lines, but QSRs, or those frontline employees, 1 out of 5 will leave your business in the next 12 months. 1 out of 5 of your top performers, let me qualify. 20% of your top performers will leave. not over compensation, not over conflict with a manager, lack of recognition and appreciation. So there is a fundamental cost involved in not recognizing these human beings. Forget the human component and the fact that it's the right thing to do. There's a big impact to your P&L to acknowledge and praise them. Number two, we have a much better chance of keeping our top people if we're investing in them and acknowledging their good work than if we cower and hide behind the corner and cross our fingers they don't leave and we won't invest in them. And I think successful businesses understand that, but there's some that will operate out of fear. I'll tell you one thing that's helped a lot. COVID has helped, shall we say, I don't want to say shame, but certainly it's brought pressure on the C-suite and organizations to acknowledge those human beings that are bagging our groceries and delivering our food that we now all realize we're a lifeline to this economy and to us as humankind. So there's a motion in play right now, completely unintended. We started this long before COVID, that has organizations trying to fulfill their pledges as they've all stepped up to say, my frontline folks matter and I want to do something about it. So we're saying, well, okay, now's the time to do that. We've got tools to help facilitate that. Let's put action behind the words.
What motivated you to do this? Aside from it being a good idea and you know, want to be back in the entrepreneur game, why this business over something else beyond just the strategic reasons for it?
Yeah. Oh, I could get a little personal. I will tell you that I'm causal on a lot of items or issues around social justice and equity, et cetera. And just quite frankly, this motion touched my heart. I spent some time at Apollo Education in strategy, and we were working in large part on next generation learning systems. And they were all about a vocational outcome on the back end. How do we better people's lot in life? And how do we backfill, quite frankly, part of the links of the chain that LinkedIn was not servicing? And so I spent a fair amount of time immersed in this idea about helping human beings better themselves. And I'm full-time faculty 1 day a week at the University of Texas at Austin, where I teach both technology, marketing, and entrepreneurship. So I've been spending 1 day a week giving back on trying to groom and teach. And I spend time mentoring at Capital Factory, our largest accelerator in Texas. It's just kind of a core, quite frankly, of trying to be causal. I didn't have it at 30 something. I have it at 50 something. And I never had an opportunity to have my hands on dials this big that could simultaneously impact so many people's lives in such a positive way, but at the same time was wholly consistent with driving top line growth and solving business needs that, again, this idea that was good for the soul and good for the balance sheet. You don't get the opportunity to see the juxtaposition of those two often. And when I saw that it was within our sights and the massive side of the need, which is a multi-billion-dollar market, I knew this had to do. I had to do it.
Are any of these frontline workers unionized?
Certainly, depending on certain parts of the country. That's much more of a Northeast and Illinois, and to some degree a California phenomenon. But yeah, but I wouldn't know the breakout between union and non.
I'm thinking, is that just an easier path in for you to work with the unions and say, hey, like, tell your employer we want to use this as part of our next negotiation?
It's a great idea. Honestly, I hadn't even thought about that. That's actually a great idea. I hadn't thought about union approach. The closest thing I had to that was I had a really smart entrepreneur who has worked in the public safety, fire and police domain. And he coined a great term. He said, Mark, this is the anti-body cam. This is an opportunity for police officers to engage the community and citizens to give direct feedback, in essence, flipping that body cam idea, which I thought was brilliant. And so we started an effort to try to explore how do we go through local, state, and federal to explore security and police as an opportunity. But I think your idea about finding your way into unions is a great one. I spoke to the head of the Dallas Restaurant Association, which became an introduction to the Texas Restaurant Association. So there's a lot of groups like that by industry vertical where they were very much in favor of endorsing this to all their members.
I love it. So for people watching, like, what do you want them to do? You want people to download it? Do you want people to go to their Starbucks and say, hey, you should get on here because I want to recognize you? Like, is it launched yet? Can people get involved? Like, what do you want them to do?
Yeah, so brand new, so just launched. So what I'd like, honestly, is all of the above. So if you work with an organization that could deploy this as an enterprise tool, again, there's a free version and a paid version. We're happy to help you with either. So we'd love to do a deployment inside your organization. Most importantly, it's just the evangelism of the technology. Download the app. The URL is gratapro.com. But download the app. You can find it on iTunes, Google Play, and start to play with it. Upload your own resume. Your most recent job will then populate the database. We use Google APIs and geocoordinates to pull all this together. But just to get people to start using it, go into your favorite restaurant. Tell your server that you're fond of, hey, I'd love for you to download this app because I'd like to give you a 5-star rating and go back and show your boss how much we think of you, and it's how you can start racking up your own gratas. We just got to start spreading the gospel of what this thing can do. And so that's kind of our next step. We've just launched you're hot off the presses, 5 days.
Cool. And for the YouTube audience, we'll link that in the description as well, so you can go one click, go check it out. If somebody is watching and they are one of these service workers, how do you recommend they have the conversation with their boss to bring it to the company?
I think they should download it first and just start using it and hit up a few customers. You know, we all have some friendly customers. I used to own a bunch of restaurants, and so there was nothing that would warm my heart more than if you walked into my restaurant and Evan said, hey, Mark, good to see you, whatever, brush me off. Is Samantha working? I want to sit in her section. That personal relationship that you can get with one of my employees transcends my brand, my menu, my location, everything, right? And so most of us have some of those personal relationships. Go in, sit in the section, say, Samantha, you're awesome. Hey, I want you to download this app. It's pretty cool. Let's see. And then, by the way, if Samantha gets 3 or 4 gratas and can go back to her boss and say, look what my customers are saying about me, everybody else is going to want to do it too, right? So we're all a little bit competitive, and other servers are going to be going like, wow. Oh, and you also got some tips directly from this? Then it's like lights out meatball, let me in. So just spread the gospel, share with people about what we're doing and how they can get involved, and just download it and use it.
Do you see it eventually integrating with Google reviews or Yelp, where people can go look at the reviews on the store, but then there's also like Grata top people incorporated down the side?
I'll tell you where very close to that, where I really see it deployed is on job sites. Let's just take Indeed, for example. Currently, if I go to Indeed to look up a bartender, and I want to find bartenders for my restaurant, I've got lots of queries around geography, work history, et cetera, so I can kind of narrow the scope. What I don't have is one single solitary qualitative input. I have no way to stack rank and know who's really good and who's really great and who's not as good. So where I really see this is I see people taking their Grata score as part of their resume. I can see looking up one day in Indeed and saying, you know what, I'm looking for bartenders. I want them within 3 miles of my restaurant, and I want them to have a 4.5 out of 5-star rating or better. I really want the top of the top, which, by the way, democratizes opportunity because I'm going to pay more for the best one. So that's where I think that we'll start to see the rankings. I think we'll see it on job sites first. And I think, frankly, that's really where it belongs, because that's where we can take that history and empower that human being to have a better outcome professionally.
Inside of a restaurant or Starbucks, how much different pay structure is there for most people? Yeah,
I can't speak to every single organization. I can tell you that, you know, so many restaurants. Let's just take a stereotypical example. In the state of Texas, we pay $2.19 an hour plus tips. So that's kind of your minimum wage. The dynamic is what happens when a server comes in that is so exceptional with their background and they say privately, hey, I'm making $4 an hour plus tips at my existing job. That's where a lot of the pull comes in. So I think the ability, just speaking from my own experience, boy, I would pay significantly more than $2.19 an hour if I knew how to find the really good ones. So I think there's some elasticity in that pay. How great it is, it's still going to be incremental compared to the tips, unless you get into kitchen staff that can make $10, $15 an hour. And again, this is geography. I'll use Texas as basis. Kitchen line cooks, sous chefs, et cetera, $10, $15 an hour. You might see those migrate up to 12, 13 on the bottom, up to closer to 20. But again, if we had a way to separate the quality from the not. And that's what this does for the first time ever.
Yeah. Man, super cool. I learned something new today. I'm gonna check it out. If you guys want to follow Mark, do you have your own account? Because this is grata.pro on Instagram to check that out. Yep. Is that the best place? Plus the website, Grata Pro?
Yes, those are the two best places. And again, I'm very active on LinkedIn as well. So that would be the two best. Thanks.
Cool. And is it if somebody's not a frontline service worker, is it still something for them, or no, go to LinkedIn?
Absolutely. Look, you know if you're in the LinkedIn professional class or not, if your job scope, if you're changing tires at Discount Tire, you're wholly uncomfortable with having a LinkedIn profile. It's just not your environment. I think most people know which one they belong in. But if you're in a service sector, hourly, customer-facing role, and LinkedIn's not right for you, we have a home for you.
I love it. Mark Bunting, Grata.pro. So pumped you could join us here today, share some wisdom, and I'm super excited to see how this all works out.
Man, Evan, I really appreciate it. Thanks for the time and the enthusiasm.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Okay.